Elsewhere, the Constitutional Division of the Kenyan High Court has dismissed an amendment to the Judicial Service Commission Act, which gave President Uhuru Kenyatta powers to appoint the Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice. The five-judge bench, led by the principal judge of the High Court, Richard Mwongo, ruled the amendment was unconstitutional, null and void. The judges said the amendment flies in the face of the Constitution as it infringes on the independence of the Judicial Service Commission and would have allowed the executive to manipulate and patronize the judiciary. Patrick Amimo has more.
When the National Assembly late last year made changes to the Judicial Service Act 2011 to allow President Uhuru Kenyatta choose the next Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Kenya, the Law Society of Kenya and human rights organizations condemned the changes, arguing it was an affront to the independence of the judiciary. The Constitutional Division of the High Court, led by Principal Judge Richard Mwongo, has given its verdict on the changes.
We declare that the amendment to Section 33 of the Judicial Service Act, Void Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Act 2015, was unconstitutional, null and void.
The National Assembly's Justice and Legal Affairs Committee had deleted subsection 3 of the Act through the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Act 2015 and substituted it with a new section which provided that the Secretary of the Judicial Service Commission shall forward names of 3 qualified persons each for the post of the Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice.
To us, such a proposition would fly in the face of the spirit of the current Constitution, which is with respect to the appointment of judges, in which the people of the Republic of Kenya wanted a radical departure from the old system, where the appointment of judges could not be traced to any particular criteria.
Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga will retire next month. High Court Judge Isaac Lenaola had issued temporary orders stopping the Judicial Service Commission from starting the recruitment of top judicial officers set to replace Justice Mutunga and his deputy Kalpana Rawal, pending hearing and ruling on this case challenging the amendment. Article 166 of the Constitution provides that the President shall appoint the Chief Justice and Deputy Chief Justice in accordance with the recommendation of the Judicial Service Commission and subject to the approval of the National Assembly. It adds that the President shall appoint all other judges in accordance with the recommendations of the Judicial Service Commission. The President is not meant to exercise any discretion or active role in the appointment process.
To provide for a mandatory 3 names to be submitted to the President, in our view, opens an avenue for manipulation of the process and even horse trading. To do so would open the process to contamination by the ills that informed the transformation in which Kenyans discarded the old process of appointment of judges, which was besmirched with partisanship, nepotism, negative ethnicity, and tribalism. When any of the state organs steps outside its mandate, this court will not hesitate to intervene. Where the Constitution decrees a specific procedure to be followed in the enactment of legislation, both houses of Parliament are bound to follow that procedure. If Parliament violates the procedural requirements of the supreme law of the land, it is for the courts of law, not least the Supreme Court, to assert the authority and supremacy of the Constitution.
The High Court criticized Parliament for violating its standing orders and Article 10 of the Constitution on national values and principles of governance. The High Court has emphasized that the doctrine of separation of powers must be respected and that checks and balances must be observed not only to secure the independence of the judiciary but other independent commissions. Patrick Amimo, KTN News at the Milimani Courts.
In questions from journalists, he now has reached the threshold of 1,237 delegates to clinch the Republican presidential nomination. Let's come closer home now. The Legislative Assembly of the East African Community now has to raise over 10 billion shillings after members of the Assembly voted to approve the 2016-2017 annual budget for the community. The budget, expected to facilitate activities for the 150 million people of the region, was, however, a slight decrease from last year's estimate that totaled $110 million. KTN's Timothy Otieno reports.
The 26th of May 2016 marks the end of the fiscal financial year for the East Africa Community, and with it comes the presentation of a budget expected to fund various projects among the 6 member states of the East Africa Community for the next 12 months. Susan Kolimba, the Deputy Minister for the East Africa Community, who in her capacity today served as the acting chairperson of the EAC Council of Ministers for the better part of 3 hours, read out a 90-page document highlighting how funds would be spread and spent to foster integration within the region.
Allow me now to table the budget estimate for the community for the financial year 2016-2017, totaling USD 101,374,589, compared to the USD 110,660,098 of the current financial year 2015-2016.
Despite the imminent decrease in allocation of funds, concerns among members here revolved around how the partner states would raise that amount of money. Already, yesterday's session highlighted that by close of business this financial year, only Kenya had complied with all its financial obligations to the community, meaning that the other 4 states, excluding South Sudan, will be entering the new dispensation indebted to the community's coffers.
But other countries do pay. Actually, it varies from time to time. You may find this year country X has complied to a higher degree. There is no country that has been consistent in compliance.
Nimesikitika kama mbunge wa Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki kwamba bajeti ya mwaka huu imepunguka kulingana na bajeti ya mwaka jana. Ina maana kuwa baadhi ya projects ambazo zitatekelezwa mwaka huu zitapungua kulinganisha na mwaka jana.
Nearly half of funds of the budget presented today is expected to come from development partners, with member states of the East Africa Community contributing 46% of its own budget. A paltry 6%, which is about $6.3 million, will come from the community's General Reserve Fund.
This community has a huge potential. It has performed so much so far, given the challenges we have had over the years. But I think the future could only be better if we as partner states are able to contribute, towards the achievement of this community, in our own way. We must do that. We must do more than what we are doing now.
The funds are expected to prioritize activities of the single customs territory as well as the implementation of the East Africa Community Common Market Protocol. It is the last budget to have been read for the third parliament of the East Africa Legislative Assembly. The East Africa Community Secretariat, that forms the head of states as well as the cabinet secretaries of the East Africa Community, will be receiving the hugest chunk of this budgetary allocation, having been set aside $57.8 million. The legislative arm of the community, that forms the East Africa Legislative Assembly, will be receiving $16 million, while the judicial arm, commonly known as the East Africa Community Court of Justice, will be receiving $4.2 million. Timothy Otieno, KTN News in Arusha, Tanzania.
Of the year at the African Banker Awards held during the African Development Bank annual meeting in Lusaka, Zambia. Dr. Njoroge, who became governor of the CBK in June last year, was lauded for his efforts in cleaning up Kenya's financial sector and dedicated the award to the youth of Africa. Since taking over the reign of the CBK, the governor has been marked by aggressive supervision of Kenya's commercial banks, with 3 banks going under during his reign and the banking sector seeing an upsurge in reporting of bad debts. The AFDB has been holding its annual general meeting in the Zambian capital since Monday this week. Good news there for the CBK governor. Now, new motor vehicle sales for the year to April 2016 fell 21.3% to reach 4,802 units, down from 6,101 units over a similar period in 2016, as customers continue to feel the heat from the prevailing high interest rates regime. Market leader General Motors East Africa lost ground marginally, shedding 2 percentage points to hit 31.86% market share, with 1,530 units sold as compared to 1,867 over a similar 4-month period in 2015. This is a decline of about 18.1%. Sales at competitor Toyota slid 37.8% over the period, with sales of 955 units, down from 1,536 previously. This next story should be of interest to a lot of Kenyans out there. In what is a significant milestone in the cash-strapped Uchumi supermarket recovery path, 6 of the 7 suppliers who previously petitioned the court to liquidate the business have agreed to an out-of-court settlement that could see Uchumi unlock up to 300 million shillings after withdrawal of the case. UBA Kenya had agreed to advance Uchumi 300 million shillings to help keep the retail chain afloat, but the suppliers' petition is said to have blocked many of the financial facilities Uchumi previously enjoyed. Last week, Uchumi suppliers agreed to convert half of their old debt into equity in a deal brokered by the government. Uchumi's total outstanding debt is 6.1 billion shillings, 3.6 billion shillings of which is owed to suppliers. In an interview with the Standard, Uchumi CEO Julius Kipngetich said 106 companies had agreed to continue supplying. So the recent boom in real estate in the country has left homeowners in search of diverse construction products to give their properties that competitive edge. On The Adventurer, Ashley Mazuri speaks to Irene Wanjiku, who identified a gap in the use of shingles, a high aesthetic product that has grown her company's turnover to 100 million shillings. Take a look.
Kenya's real estate industry has seen a significant growth over the past years, contributing about 9% of the GDP. This week on The Adventurer, we feature Irene Wanjiku, an entrepreneur who ventured into a male-dominated industry by providing unique roofing products.
Irene Wanjiku. I'm the Managing Director, Rexy Roofing. We are roofing contractors, and our main aim is to fully support the construction industry by availing what you'd call the most eco-friendly as well as the latest technology in the roofing industry. To do your roof, what we always require is your roof plan, because usually when you have an architect, then they will design. So one of the most interesting things about our product is that they can take initiative.
Despite her passion for law, Irene opted for the construction industry, a sector not many would venture into. Irene built her Rexy Roofing with limited income, but her strength was customer trust. Her first shipment order was met with customers' deposits.
The first thing that strikes you, because you're not inside, is definitely the roof. For close to 6 years I was working and I was saving in the construction firm. And I was making savings, but the savings I was doing was like every other person. But then I thought that it was time to make a change. We needed like 5 million to go into business, and I didn't have that. So I went from site to site asking for deposits. So clients themselves funded their materials.
The journey to success was quite tough, with minimal profit on her first try. And while this could have meant a bailout, she stuck by her guns to build a company that now boasts of 100 million shillings.
The need to expand, you have to go into expansion. Like I said, previously most of our products have been imported. Now we also want to manufacture roofing products for the market. Yeah. It's a challenge having most of the product imported. Shipments are like the weather. We really can't predict.
With a team of around 35, Rexy Roofing takes around 7 months to 1 year to complete construction. The current hub is one of the many major projects Rexy Roofing has worked on.
When you start a business, if you cannot think as an accountant, because if you think of it as an accountant, then it will be very difficult for you to run it.
Irene and her team hope to improve people's living standards by bridging the gap between demand and supply of unique roofing products. I am Ashley Mazuri, and this is The Adventure.
Let's now take a look at sports, and we begin with the story that at some point made President Uhuru Kenyatta send representatives to go and argue Kenya's case, the special sitting of the National Assembly has approved the amendments to the 2016 Anti-Doping Act proposed by World Anti-Doping Agency as Kenya speeds the process of reversing the WADA non-compliant verdict. Members of Parliament, however, said they are not to blame for the 24 issues that led to Kenya being declared non-compliant.
Honourable Speaker, I was on Hansard asking members when we were dealing with the Committee of the Whole House that we should not introduce any amendments, and thank the House that no amendments were introduced by members of the National Assembly, and the same went to the members of the Senate. As a matter of fact, Honourable Speaker, the shortcoming may have been occasioned by the rush of this bill at the drafting stage at the Attorney General's office, and probably the Ministry for Sports amendments they sent to the House.
It has been costed to the country, it's embarrassed the country. People had to travel all the way to Montreal to correct that, and that is what we started with. But having said that, it's also amazing to me that when the committee went through all this, with all the participation, the availability of the clerks and lawyers in the committees, how is it that we again missed the very essence which this bill was intended for? I think, Madam Speaker, we must go back and look at our use of time and use of the committee report.
So it is very, very critical for the Kenyan people to know that the National Assembly exercised its mandate accordingly. We did not mess up at any given time. And is this the time we are calling upon the sports minister? Next time they should pay attention to the details.
Muhoroni Youth and Ushuru bagged 3 points as the SportPesa Premier League entered its round of 15 on Thursday. Bandari and Thika United shared the spoils away in the coastal city of Mombasa.
With the Afraha Stadium in Nakuru being under renovation ahead of the Madaraka Day celebrations next Wednesday, fans were denied access due to security reasons. Ulinzi Stars, who before the match had 26 points, 3 behind league leaders Tusker, were first to appear on the score sheet through John Makwata's strike 9 minutes into the match. After the break, Kakamega Homeboys' David Okoth equalized after a defensive blunder in the Ulinzi backline.
Today match, it was bad match for us. We didn't play well. The team did not click. And we saw our player there just stagnant. No movement, nothing. So we considered an easy goal. And then that's the draw. Nothing we can say.
So wakati tunacheza away lazima uwe cautious sana. Now tukicheza away kama team kama hii Ulinzi ni team nzuri na team kubwa sana. So tulikuwa tunajua ile experience ambayo wamekuwa nayo kwa muda kwa ligi, na hawa vijana ni wameingia kwa ligi msimu huu. So ilikuwa lazima tucheze cautious. That's why hata unapata nafasi mingi sana wakati attacking yetu leo haikuwa effective sana.
In other matches, Ushuru beat host Western Stima 3-1 while Shoni Sugar beat City Stars 2-0. Muhoroni Youth beat Chemelil Sugar 1-0 while Posta Rangers played Mathare United to a barren draw. Thika United held host Bandari 1-1. Victor Gale, KTN News, Nakuru County.
So it has not been an easy 2016 season for the 2009 Kenyan Premier League champions Sofapaka, who are currently bottom on the KPL log. And in the last outing, it was a 2-0 loss against Gor Mahia at Moi Stadium in Kisumu. Sofapaka has sunk to a new low, with the players left stranded in Kisumu after a disagreement with the club's management. The players allege they have gone for months without pay and now are calling on the Football Kenyan Federation to come to their rescue. Take a look.
So I was called in the morning that the players have refused to come out of the room because they have not been paid their allowances. Period. There was nothing much. Because I also had some other guests who were supposed to check in, and these guys had refused to come out of the room, the team manager was also worried. So the team manager had to go to the police and report.
We are not being taken care of, our welfare and everything. So we told the management, like, we can't go to a break without at least giving us something. Like, we've sacrificed. Honoring a game is not a joke. Like, traveling from Kisumu, from Nairobi all the way to Kisumu, leaving your family. Some of us here are family men, and it's not easy. Going 3 months without pay, and it's not easy.
So Jose Mourinho has been appointed the new Manchester United manager. Reports from England indicate that Manchester United finally have their man. United has appointed the former Chelsea and Real Madrid manager. Mourinho takes over from Dutch man Louis van Gaal, who blew hot and cold and was fired at the beginning of the week.
This is KTN News.
So a big question tonight focused on that ruling by High Court Judge Mumbi Ngugi that essentially said men won't have a say whether their names should be included in the birth certificates of their children they have sired out of wedlock. 45% of you say, actually that was the base of a big question, so he asked, do you agree that fathers should have no say in the use of their names for babies born out of wedlock? Do you agree that fathers should have no say in the use of their names for babies born out of wedlock? 45% of you say no, yes. 55% of you say no. 45 say yes, 55 say no. Here's the thing, people. You can track that conversation. It's a very interesting conversation, especially on Twitter. So you can look at our handle at KTN News, at KTN Kenya, and my handle as well at Linda Gutu. Then you'll have an idea of what people think on our big question tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. I'm Linda Ogutu.